Good morning, welcome in 6:30, December 18th. Gonna be a chilly one as temps are in the single digits and not expecting to get above 25 today with a north wind at a 10 to 15 miles per hour. So it'll stay pretty chilly. The sun is expected to be out, so that will feel good to get some vitamin D when we're out and about today. So again, remember cold stress was a good topic last week by Alberta to remember to bundle up, especially in these chilly temperatures. So quick little refresher here with COVID-19. As you can see, we're still going through that kind of second wave. We're still seeing very active cases here in Vermont. Majority of the cases reported, over half, have been in Chittenden County, a little bit in Bennington, in Windsor, are kind of the, but again, it's throughout the state of Vermont. So it's very important that we remember the best practices and don't get complacent and let our guard down. And again, health and safety is here. For any COVID questions, issues, anything that arise, feel free to call me direct on my cell if needed. With that said, we will quickly just talk about the quote of the week is maintain confidential of insider information, learn about ECI or about our clients. It's very important. That we don't be flippant with our information and potentially send it to somebody that shouldn't have it. There's a lot of security measures out there, especially when we're working at the Air National Guard, Camp Johnson like we are, which would be the highlight project of the week this week. Health and safety news, we had a couple incidents this week. Luckily, they were prevented or deemed kind of more first aid than a recordable. So we added to our count of 15 days without a recordable injury. So let's try to really focus in on our JHAs this morning, really put an emphasis on struck by hazards, because those are the ones that are kind of getting us out there on our job sites. So have a nice little safety stand down on our projects to really emphasis on struck by hazards this morning, really focus in to identify what could potentially happen, and let's put up those engineering controls, administrative controls to protect ourselves. And then our last line of defense is that personal protective equipment. With that said, we have a guest speaker in today. Amy's back with a wellness series. Amy, I'll pass it over to you so you can get started.
Excellent, thanks
for joining us this morning.
All right, can you guys see my screen now? So today,
no, we don't see it, Amy.
Oh.
Oh, yes, we do. Okay. Yes, we do. I'm sorry.
All right, excellent. That's okay. So today we're going to talk about tennis elbow. This is the time of year where guys start changing into different jobs. You start doing things you might not normally do. We have some snow coming, and this is one of those injuries that can get you. So tennis elbow, also known as lateral epicondylitis, the newer name for it is lateral elbow tendinopathy, occurs when you overload the tendons of your elbow. It's usually by some kind of repetitive movement of your wrist and arm, and you usually end up with pain. And if you've left it go too long, you end up with a little bit of weakness. So here's our anatomy lesson for today. This is the backside of your arm. You can see how complex it is and how many muscles are working here. If you look at that red circled area, this is the area that we're talking about with tennis elbow. It's this really 1 to 2 inch area at the top of your elbow, called the common extensor tendon, where a lot of muscles insert. So you have this white area that's circled, that's the tendon. It turns into the red areas, which are the muscles, which then go into your hand and turn into tendons again, and a little bit of a pulley system down there. So you have a lot of load on this 1 to 2 inch tendon that attaches to your bone. So it can be very easily overloaded. If we look closer, you could really see is this very small area that attaches to the bone, and that's where the problem is when you load that tendon onto that bone and there's that pull. If it's too much, it does not like it. So who gets it? For those of you that have had it, you know it's not just athletes. People whose jobs include a lot of ripping and straightening of your arm, some twisting motions, repetitive movements that you do for a long time. So if you're going, wow, that's me, it probably is, especially in your guys' line of work. So carpenters, plumbers, painters, bricklayers, shoveling, people who work at computers all day are in that prolonged position where you're doing repetitive typing. Any of these people are at risk for tennis elbow. So here's a couple of examples to try to illustrate what might happen and how you might get it. So you're working at ECI, you're a truck driver, and you unload and load materials from your vehicle. Now that winter's here, you're changing over to do some plowing, but you also get outside and maybe shovel some sidewalks. We just got our first, well, it was supposed to be a big storm, right? And you're plowing, shoveling for work, and you came home and then you shoveled at your house. Next day, you wake up with some elbow pain. What happened? What did you do wrong? Not necessarily what did you do wrong, what went wrong. So this new repetitive activity of shoveling from something where you're used to carrying and lifting, even though those are both strengthening your arms, it's a different type of activity that you're not used to since we just got our first snow, and you overloaded your tendon. And what happens here is it causes some really small micro tearing in those tendons. Another example is you were helping to load material off of a truck. You grabbed something that was heavier than you expected. You lifted it up and carried it 10 feet. Once you dropped it, your elbow started to hurt. So a little bit different than the scenario before. The scenario before was repetitive loading, maybe a small amount of load that you did over and over again. That's something that was completely new to you. This one is a one-time big load. So what happens here? With this, it was a single instance of exertion, and you probably relied too much on your wrist muscles and not enough on your core and back. In addition to having this load be unexpectedly heavy, and that might have been why you use your wrist muscles too much. When this happens, when you have this one single instance of an excessive load where you use your muscles of your arms and don't use your core and back to help, you get some larger tearing of that tendon. It feels the same. The difference is in the first case, you get pain. It might start to come and go for a couple of days. You're like, I'm not quite sure what happens here. The more you do, say the more it snows and the more it works, it gets worse, where this one is just one single instance and it continues to just be painful. So the first one is an easy one to just let go for a couple weeks going, oh, this will get better, this will get better. And a month later, you realize, oh, wow, that hurt. Where this one, it's hard to ignore. So what's the healing look like for a tennis elbow? The big thing with this is because you have some tearing, it actually initiates a sequence of events that changes how the tendon looks and how it functions. So if you think of a tendon as all these little strings that are in nice parallel straight lines that allow the pull, the force to be pulled onto that bone, that doesn't happen anymore. Once you have that tearing, it almost looks like a ball of yarn. And you can't, if you could think of a ball of yarn versus nice straight strings, it's hard to get a nice load on that ball of yarn. And that can lead to some pain and some weakness. So if you just rest, nothing really happens. You might feel good for a couple of days, but the minute you load it again and go back to those activities again, the pain tends to come back because you actually haven't changed the structure of that tendon. So the healing is based on that. First is pain management and gradual strengthening. We do a gradual loading of the elbow and forearm muscles through a progressive exercise program. If there's some shoulder issues in that, we might look at that as well. And then avoiding having repetitive activities or taking breaks between those activities if it's part of your working or daily activities that you can't avoid. So some early pain management might be some foam rolling and some stretching. I find the stick, which is the first picture, can be really helpful. Getting onto a foam roller for your forearms can be difficult. But the stick or a tennis ball can be really helpful, and some really gentle stretching can also be really helpful. We start off with some really basic exercises. These wrist extension isometrics, where you're literally just pushing your uninjured hand into the lower hand, which is the injured hand, and holding that has been shown to be really effective in not only reducing pain, but changing the structure of those muscles, especially early on, or those tendons, especially early on. And then we progress to some wrist extension exercises with a weight, where the focus is a slow, lower component. If you're a weightlifter, it's the negative component of that activity. So if you're, say, squatting, it would be lowering down, not the standing up part. So this is what progressive loading looks like. And I use this kind of example to illustrate and just give you an understanding of what it looks like to not go just straight back to an activity, which is hard to do. Is you feel good one day, oh, I could go back to doing what I was supposed to, what I used to do. And you can't really do that. We have to progressively load that tendon again to allow it to adapt slowly to the loads before you get back to what you have to do. So your goal, your normal daily activities would include, or work activities include lifting a 10-pound box 200 times a day. So your overall load is that 10 times 200. So it's just this random unit of 2,000 units. We would start with a lighter weight than what you normally lift and a much lighter repetition. So we're looking at that overall load of 500 units, and you slowly increase that load by increasing your repetitions. And I just kind of stopped at 1250, but you'd usually want to get closer to that 2,000 point, and then you'd increase the weight. It could be 7.5 pounds. If you could go all the way to 10 pounds, go back to a lower load and slowly build up from there again. So it actually does take quite a bit of time and a bit of discipline as far as not just jumping right back in and slowly loading those tendons again. So that is it for today. I hope everybody has a great and safe holiday. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Very informative. Again, like she kind of mentioned earlier, we do have some tennis elbow from time to time, especially swinging those hammers. That's when we see a lot of the concrete guys. So very informative, very educational, and Amy's on board to help us. If there is any flare-ups, please let us know so we can jump on these and get you those exercises, because preventative measures will really help in the recovery if something does happen. With that said, I'll pass it over to Ken for the rest of our presentation this morning.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Amy. Yeah, like I was discussing with Amy briefly before the meeting, is that I had a problem here a year or two ago, a couple of years ago, I think it was, right on the inside of my elbow, which isn't quite the same, but still had a tendonitis problem. And Amy gave me some exercises to do, and it took a while, but I recovered completely. Even though that injury, by the time I went to see her, was probably months old, I was still able to get it back and recover it so there's no pain at all now. I'm going to show my screen here, and let's see. There we go. Do you see the email?
Yes, we do.
Okay, great. So for announcements this week, we have the holiday schedule to keep in mind here, which starts next week. It's going to be a short week next week. I probably should have put on here to make sure your payroll information is put in early so that the accounting staff can take care of it, because we'll have to have a lot of processing done, and they're going to take Thursday and Friday off up there. So let's go through the schedule here. Christmas virtual safety meeting will be on Thursday morning. That's the 24th at 6:30 a.m. regular time, but on Thursday, since Friday's the holiday. ECI will close after noon time on the 24th. So afternoon again means kind of a sometime afternoon that makes sense for the crews based on a crew by crew basis. And then Friday the 25th, of course, Christmas is a holiday and everybody will pretty much be off. The Christmas hams will be available on Thursday morning. That's the 24th. So there's details below. And as I said, the administrative offices will be closed on both Thursday and Friday, 24th and 25th. Then on New Year's, we have the virtual safety meeting on Thursday, the 31st. Oh, I put 6:45. I guess we will be thinking about changing probably to a different time, but I'll advise you on what the time will be next week. And then ECI will close after noon again on the 31st. And on Friday, January 1st, of course, is the first day and the holiday, but the first day of 2021. So here we have the details on the Christmas ham and bonus checks. Boy, that's great. I'll be there. I'll be there to pick up my bonus and my ham too. So Thursday, that's the 24th, next Thursday, 6:45, right after safety meeting till 9. So there's two ways of getting the hams and bonus checks. We'd like to hand out the bonus checks directly to everybody. So let's either pick up curbside or job site delivery. So if you're in the area and it makes sense, just do the drive-through curbside pickup, which will be at the GMP building, which is on the south side of our operations office. And so just please form a vehicle line from Engineers Drive and exit out through the backyard, and we'll just process everybody curbside. And job site delivery for jobs, just call Matt Orzalak, and there'll be a coordinated delivery of the hams and the checks and everything like that. So other comments on this, please follow all the COVID precautions and coordinate it with your supervisor. So if you're gonna do the drive-through, just make sure you coordinate with the supervisor on your job to say, hey, I'm gonna be there or going through, it makes sense, I'll do it then. And he might have a different idea and say, hey, why don't I just have everybody come out for the crew? Maybe the foreman might decide it would be better to have everybody together for it. And certainly we're more than happy to go out and do a job site delivery. So the COVID-19 policies are here and can be connected. And for the project of the week, we have the Fallen Heroes Memorial Relocation Project. That's over at Camp Johnson in Colchester. And we are contracted with the Vermont Military Department to relocate the Fallen Heroes Memorial, which is currently within the secure side at Camp Johnson. The new site is outside of the secure area. Well, partly that the secure area will be modified slightly to allow it to be outside, and that'll allow for better access by civilian visitors without going through the gate. The existing memorial's entrance, including a walkway of engraved brick pavers with donor names, will be carefully removed and then reinstalled, reused. Our drone was used to provide aerial documentation of the current paver layout. And they have a museum over there of jet fighters. Two of the jet fighters were permanently relocated by the Vermont Air Guard personnel, and 2 World War II tanks were moved by ECI's equipment. The security fence was, like I said, relocated to accommodate this new site, and the base's entrance gate area was modified with new access to the site, including a parking lot, 265-foot by 45-foot parking lot for the visitors. We had also a wet tap to do on an existing water line to provide irrigation and sprinkler line service. And currently the new concrete memorial walls are scheduled to be poured next Monday. Then a winter shutdown will probably occur after the New Year's, depending on how the temperatures are. We have subcontractors, including Alpha Electric is doing the lighting, some street lights and gate relocation controls. Aquarius is doing the irrigation sprinkler system. The MAG is doing the monument relocation. Vermont Rec and Fence, there's a lot of chain link fence work and gates. Vermont Stone is doing the memorial wall stone veneer, the brick pavers, the granite benches, the wall plaques, and the donor recognition pillar. So here we are before at least any demolition work at the memorial. It's still existing out there. It is essentially a brick paved area with a wall and benches and monument at the front. And we use the drone to take photos of the existing bricks so we can exactly put them back. The site you see from the circle there is the guard shack gate entrance right off Route 15. Route 15 is kind of out of view to the right. The existing memorial is over on the left side here. You can see the shape of it. And then the relocated will be here with access off the off the circle. So this photo with us in the background has the guard moving some of the museum planes or jets. And we're doing some trenching for conduit here with, again, some of the museum in the background. This is the footing for the wall, doing some layout here. It's a circular type wall, so it's kind of tricky construction and layout. There we go, it's all formed up, it's ready for pouring. That date is obviously wrong on that pour. I should have cropped that out probably. And then we have some of the subcontractors. This is Alpha Electric doing the rewiring and reconduiting up to the box, the control box for the gate. So as we get there, we'll give you an update here in the spring when things get further along. And from the photo archives, I grabbed one out of the photos for the Essex Junction Veterans Memorial Park, and this was way back in August 2001. At least that's what it said. I almost couldn't believe it was that long ago. And here we are doing a little similar layout on a similar wall. So I thought it was pretty cool how we've done this now a couple different times. If we back up to here, a little bit different layout with shorter segments on the footing there, but overall very similar. So that's what I got. I'll turn it back over to you, Matt, and we'll hopefully stay warm today. Remember all the last week's discussion too on heat or cold stress and protecting yourself from the cold, especially frost, frostbite and that kind of thing. So have a good day out there. And remember, next week's a short week. Get your time cards in early, and then hams and bonus checks on Thursday. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Ken. And one just quick announcement. This week was our last week for this training ID number. We used all 50 of those. So we'll have to renew that for next Thursday's meeting. So today I'll be sending out a new registration email. So everybody's got to re-register for next week's safety meeting. Ken, I'll give you that ID number for the email. All right. Have a safe day, everybody. Remember those JHAs and let's control those hazards. Have a safe day. Bye now.